Jessica Walsh's hands trembled as she slid her credit card into the reader for the third time. The line behind her at Morrison's grocery grew longer with each passing second, and the weight of embarrassment pressed heavier on her shoulders. At 26, with chestnut hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and wearing the only professional outfit she owned, a navy blue pencil skirt and white blouse she'd found at a thrift store, Jessica had calculated every item in her cart down to the penny. Yet here she stood, the digital display mockingly flashing "Card declined" once again. "I'm sorry, but there seems to be an issue with your card," the cashier said, lowering her voice in a failed attempt at discretion. The woman's nameplate read, "Barbara," and the sympathy in her eyes only made Jessica feel worse. "Do you have another payment method?" Jessica fumbled through her worn wallet, knowing full well there was nothing else inside. 3 days until payday, and her account had apparently hit zero sooner than expected. The carefully selected groceries, mostly necessities and a few special ingredients for her brother's birthday dinner tomorrow, now seemed like impossible luxuries. "I can put these back," she whispered, reaching for the small carton of eggs. Her throat tightened as she fought back tears. This month had been particularly difficult, with an unexpected rent increase and her brother Ryan's college application fees coming due all at once. The murmurs from the line behind her grew louder. A middle-aged man checked his watch pointedly, while a woman with a toddler shifted impatiently from one foot to the other. Jessica could feel their stares burning into her back. Her cheeks flushed hot with shame as she began sorting items to return to the shelves. "Is there a problem here?" The deep voice came from directly behind her. Jessica turned to face a tall man in his late 30s, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and behind his designer glasses his eyes, an unusual shade of grey, studied the situation with calm interest. "My card was declined," Jessica admitted, her voice barely audible. "I need to put some things back." The stranger glanced at her modest cart. Milk, eggs, flour, a small package of chicken, some vegetables, and a tiny box of candles for the birthday cake she'd planned to bake. Ryan was turning 18 tomorrow, and despite their financial struggles, Jessica was determined to make it special for him. "I'll pay for it," he said simply, reaching for his wallet. Jessica blinked in surprise. "That's very kind, but I couldn't possibly—" "Please," he insisted with a gentle smile. "Consider it my good deed for the day." Before she could protest further, he handed the cashier a sleek black card. The transaction was approved instantly, of course. Barbara's eyes widened slightly at the name on the card, but she said nothing as she handed over the receipt for signature. The man then helped Jessica bag her groceries as if it were the most natural thing in the world. His hands were strong but gentle, and Jessica noticed a simple yet elegant watch on his wrist that probably cost more than her entire education fund. "Thank you," Jessica said, still stunned by the stranger's generosity. "I don't know how to repay you." "No repayment necessary," he smiled again, revealing a small dimple in his left cheek. "I'm Jackson, by the way. Jackson Pierce." "Jessica Walsh," she replied automatically, shifting her grocery bags to shake his outstretched hand. His grip was firm and confident. There was something vaguely familiar about his name, but Jessica couldn't place it. Her mind was still reeling from the roller coaster of emotions, from humiliation to relief. All she knew was that this well-dressed stranger had saved her from one of the most embarrassing moments of her life. "Can I help you carry these to your car?" Jackson offered, picking up the heavier bags before she could respond. Jessica hesitated. "Actually, I took the bus. My apartment's just a few blocks away. Then allow me to drive you home. My car's right outside." Under normal circumstances, Jessica would never accept a ride from a stranger, no matter how well-dressed or seemingly kind. But something about Jackson's demeanor put her at ease. Perhaps it was the genuine concern in his eyes, or maybe it was simply that she couldn't face the crowded bus with her arms full of grocery bags and her pride still smarting. "All right," she conceded. "Thank you." Outside, Jackson led her to a sleek black Aston Martin that seemed almost comically out of place in the modest neighborhood. Several passers-by stopped to stare at the luxury vehicle. As he opened the passenger door for her, Jessica suddenly wondered what kind of person drove such an expensive car and shopped at Morrison's grocery. "Do you live around here?" she asked as he slid into the driver's seat, the leather interior creaking softly beneath them. "No," Jackson replied, starting the engine with a gentle purr. "I was visiting the community center down the street. I serve on their board." As they drove the short distance to her apartment, Jessica couldn't help but notice how Jackson navigated the potholed streets with ease, as if he were familiar with the neighborhood, despite clearly not belonging to it. He asked about her day with genuine interest, and she found herself telling him about her job at Meridian Publishing, where she worked as an administrative assistant. "It's not my dream job," she admitted, "but it pays the bills, most of them anyway." Jackson nodded thoughtfully. "And what is your dream job?" The question caught her off guard. It had been so long since anyone had asked about her dreams rather than her obligations. "I'm studying library science online. I want to work in digital archiving someday." Jessica's apartment was in the Westridge complex, a faded brick building that had seen better days. As they pulled up to the entrance, she felt a twinge of embarrassment at the contrast between his car and her surroundings. The building's facade was worn, with peeling paint and a broken gutter that the landlord had promised to fix months ago. "Second floor," she directed as they carried the groceries inside and up the narrow stairwell with its threadbare carpet. She was acutely aware of how out of place Jackson looked here, like a peacock among sparrows. Her tiny one-bedroom apartment was neat but sparse, a second-hand couch with a carefully placed throw to hide a worn patch, a small dining table with mismatched chairs, and walls decorated with Jessica's own photographs, her one indulgence. The afternoon sun filtered through thin curtains, casting a warm glow over the modest space. "These are remarkable," Jackson commented, pausing to study a black-and-white image of the city skyline at dawn. The photo had been taken from the roof of her building, one of the few perks of living on the top floor. "Thank you," Jessica said, surprised by his interest. "Photography's my passion, though not my profession, unfortunately." She busied herself putting away groceries to hide her sudden nervousness. "You have a real talent," he said, moving to examine another photo, this one of an elderly couple laughing on a park bench. "You capture emotion beautifully." "What do you do, if you don't mind me asking?" Jessica ventured, though she was beginning to suspect he was more important than he let on. "I run a few businesses," he answered vaguely, turning from the photographs, "mostly technology and real estate." There was an awkward silence as Jessica finished storing the last of the groceries. She turned to find Jackson studying her intently, his grey eyes thoughtful. "I should get going," he said finally. "But I enjoyed meeting you, Jessica." "Wait," she said impulsively, surprising herself. "Would you like some coffee? It's the least I can do to thank you." She mentally calculated whether she had enough milk left after setting aside what she needed for Ryan's birthday cake. Jackson checked his watch, a subtle, elegant timepiece that probably cost more than her entire apartment, then smiled. "I have time for coffee." Over the next hour, they talked easily at her small kitchen table. Jessica learned that Jackson had grown up in this very neighborhood before attending an Ivy League university on scholarship. He spoke about his childhood with a mix of nostalgia and distance, as if that life belonged to someone else now. "Is that why you serve on the community center board?" she asked. "Because you grew up here?" Jackson nodded, cradling his mug. "I believe in giving back. That center gave me a safe place to study when home was complicated." Jessica understood complicated homes all too well. After their parents died in a car accident 3 years ago, she'd become responsible for Ryan, though he lived primarily with their Aunt Patricia while Jessica finished her degree. As Jackson prepared to leave, he hesitated at the door. "I have an event this Saturday, a charity gala for the community center. Would you consider being my guest?" Jessica's heart skipped a beat. The invitation was so unexpected that she wasn't sure she'd heard him correctly. "I don't have anything to wear to a gala," she said finally, gesturing at her modest apartment as if to emphasize the point. "That's easily remedied," Jackson said with a wave of his hand. "I'll send a car for you at 7. Before Jessica could formulate a response, he handed her a business card. "My personal number's on the back. Text me your address." It wasn't until after he left that Jessica turned the card over and felt her breath catch. The embossed lettering read, "Jackson Pierce, CEO, Pierce Industries." The Pierce Industries, a technology conglomerate worth billions. The mysterious grocery store Good Samaritan wasn't just wealthy. He was Jackson Pierce, one of the richest men in the country. Jessica sank onto her couch, the business card clutched in her hand, wondering what exactly she'd gotten herself into. Why would someone like Jackson Pierce be interested in her? Was this just another charitable act for him? And more importantly, what would happen if she said yes to Saturday night? As the afternoon sun filtered through her window, casting long shadows across the floor, Jessica realized she was standing at the edge of something that could change her life forever. The question was whether she had the courage to take that first step. Jessica spent the next day in a state of disbelief, constantly pulling Jackson's business card from her wallet to confirm she hadn't imagined the whole encounter. Pierce Industries was everywhere once you started looking. Their logo appeared on her laptop, her phone's operating system, and even the digital advertising boards downtown. Jackson Pierce wasn't just wealthy, he was technological royalty. "You're distracted today," Ryan observed that evening as they celebrated his birthday in their Aunt Patricia's cozy dining room. Tall and lanky, with the same chestnut hair as his sister, Ryan had their father's analytical mind and their mother's warmth. "Something happened at work," Jessica smiled, sliding another piece of homemade birthday cake onto his plate. "Nothing important. Just thinking about a strange encounter I had yesterday." Aunt Patricia, a practical woman in her 50s with prematurely grey hair and kind eyes, raised an eyebrow. "Strange how?" Jessica hesitated. Saying it aloud would make it real, and the reality seemed too fantastic. "I met someone at the grocery store." "Like a date?" Ryan teased, his mouth full of cake. "No, not a date," Jessica replied, though the flush in her cheeks betrayed her. "He just helped me out when my card was declined." Patricia's eyes narrowed with concern. "Your card was declined? Jess, you should have called me." "It's fine, I get paid tomorrow." Jessica waved away her aunt's worry. "Anyway, this guy paid for my groceries, drove me home, and then invited me to some charity gala on Saturday." Ryan whistled. "Sounds like a date to me." "It's not," Jessica insisted, though the possibility had kept her awake half the night. "He's just being nice." "What's his name?" Patricia asked, ever practical. Jessica took a deep breath. "Jackson Pierce." The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan's fork clattered onto his plate. "Jackson Pierce? As in Pierce Industries Jackson Pierce, the billionaire?" "I think so." Jessica pulled out the business card and placed it on the table. Patricia picked it up, examining it as if it might be counterfeit. "Jessica, men like Jackson Pierce don't just randomly pay for groceries and invite strangers to galas." "Maybe he does charitable things all the time," Jessica suggested. "He mentioned serving on the community center board." "Or maybe he's interested in you," Ryan said, grinning. "My sister, dating a billionaire. That would make one hell of a college application essay." "I'm not dating him," Jessica protested, "and I probably won't even go to the gala." "Why not?" Ryan and Patricia asked in unison. Jessica gestured down at her simple outfit. "I have nothing to wear for one thing, and for another, I'd be completely out of place. These people donate more to charity in one night than I make in a year." Patricia studied her niece thoughtfully. "You know, your mother had a beautiful dress, the one she wore to that award ceremony, remember? It's still in the storage closet. Might need some alterations, but I can't wear Mom's dress," Jessica said softly, the memory catching in her throat. "She'd want you to," Ryan said with surprising gentleness. "You know she would." Jessica left her aunt's house that night with her mother's dress, carefully wrapped in a garment bag, and a promise to text them both after the gala. As she walked to the bus stop, she finally allowed herself to consider the possibility that Jackson Pierce might actually be interested in her. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. The next morning at Meridian Publishing, Jessica found it nearly impossible to concentrate on her work. She'd finally texted Jackson her address late the previous night, and he'd responded almost immediately. "Looking forward to Saturday. The car will be there at 7 JP. "Earth to Jessica," her co-worker Mia called, waving a hand in front of her face. Mia Ramirez was the office's marketing assistant, perpetually cheerful and always impeccably dressed, despite earning the same modest salary as Jessica. "That's the third time you've read the same email. Spill it." Jessica glanced around the busy office. "Not here. Lunch?" At the small cafe across from their building, Jessica told Mia everything, from the embarrassing moment at the grocery store to the unexpected gala invitation. "Holy shit!" Mia's eyes were wide. "Jackson Pierce is like the most eligible bachelor in the country. Half the women in America would kill to be in your shoes right now." "It's not like that," Jessica insisted. "He's just being nice." Mia laughed. "Honey, billionaires don't just be nice. They have people for that. If he invited you personally, he's interested. But why would he be interested in me?" Jessica stirred her soup absently. "I'm nobody special." "Are you kidding?" Mia looked genuinely offended. "You're gorgeous, smart, and unlike those trust fund socialites he usually gets photographed with, you're real. Men like that get tired of fake." Jessica wasn't convinced. "I still think he just felt sorry for me." "So prove him wrong," Mia challenged. "Show up at that gala looking amazing, be your brilliant self, and make him realize he's the lucky one." That evening, Jessica retrieved her mother's dress from the garment bag. It was a deep emerald green, simple but elegant with its fitted bodice and flowing skirt. Running her fingers over the smooth fabric, she felt a connection to her mother that brought both comfort and pain. With some minor alterations, taking in the waist and shortening the hem, it could work. Saturday arrived with alarming speed. Jessica spent the morning at a small tailoring shop Mia had recommended, where an elderly seamstress named Mrs. Chen worked magic on her mother's dress. After a simple manicure that stretched her budget but felt necessary for the occasion, Jessica returned home to prepare. At exactly 7 p.m., a sleek black town car pulled up outside her apartment building. The driver, a professional-looking woman named Diane, greeted her warmly and held the door open. "Mr. Pierce is meeting you at the venue," she explained as they pulled away from the curb. "He had some business to attend to beforehand." As they approached downtown, Jessica's anxiety mounted. The gala was being held at the Grand Meridian Hotel, one of the city's most prestigious venues. Celebrities, business leaders, and politicians would be in attendance. What had she been thinking, agreeing to this? The car stopped at the hotel entrance, where a red carpet stretched beneath a gleaming canopy. Photographers lined the walkway, and for a panicked moment, Jessica thought they might be waiting for her. Then she realized they were there for the actual celebrities, not an administrative assistant wearing her dead mother's dress. Jessica! She turned to see Jackson striding toward her, handsome in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. His smile was warm and genuine as he took her hand. "You look absolutely stunning." "Thank you," she managed, suddenly conscious of every breath, every movement. "This is all a bit overwhelming." "Just stay close to me," he said, offering his arm. "You'll be fine." As they walked into the grand ballroom, Jessica felt the weight of curious stares. Jackson Pierce rarely brought dates to these events, and when he did, they were usually famous models or actresses. Jessica, with her simple elegance, was an anomaly. "Jackson, darling!" A striking woman in her 40s approached, air-kissing Jackson's cheeks before turning her appraising gaze on Jessica. "And who is your lovely friend?" "Amanda. Meet Jessica Walsh." "Jessica, this is Amanda Whitfield, our event chair and an old family friend." "Charmed," Amanda said, though her eyes suggested otherwise. "And what is it you do, Jessica?" Before she could answer, Jackson smoothly intervened. "Jessica is a talented photographer and digital archivist. Her work is exceptional." Jessica blinked in surprise. She was neither of those things, not professionally at least. "How fascinating," Amanda replied with practiced interest. "You must show me your work sometime." As Amanda moved on to greet other guests, Jessica turned to Jackson. "Why did you say that? I'm just an administrative assistant." "Because that's who you are," he said simply. "The job you currently hold doesn't define you. Your passion and talent do." Throughout the evening, Jackson introduced her to countless people, always emphasizing her photography and studies, never mentioning Meridian Publishing. He seemed genuinely proud to have her by his side, his hand rarely leaving the small of her back as they navigated the room. During dinner, Jessica found herself seated next to a distinguished older man who introduced himself as Walter Bennett, director of the City Museum. "Jackson tells me you have quite an eye for composition," Walter said conversationally. "We're actually looking to digitize our photography collection. Perhaps you'd be interested in consulting on the project." Jessica nearly choked on her champagne. "I don't have professional experience in that area." "Experience is overrated," Walter chuckled. "Talent and passion are far more valuable. Stop by my office next week. We'll talk." After dinner, Jackson led her to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The night air was cool and he gallantly draped his jacket over her shoulders. "Are you enjoying yourself?" he asked, his grey eyes reflecting the city lights. "It's like a dream," Jessica admitted. "But I don't understand why I'm here. Why did you invite me, Jackson? Really?" He was quiet for a moment, leaning against the balcony rail. "Do you believe in fate, Jessica?" The question caught her off guard. "I'm not sure." "I didn't either," he said. "Until yesterday." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a photograph. a black and white image of a young boy sitting on the steps of what appeared to be the community center, a book open on his lap. Jessica's breath caught. It was one of her photographs, one she'd taken years ago for a college assignment. "Where did you get this?" "It's been on my desk for the past 8 years," Jackson said softly. "The community center director gave it to me after it won some local contest. Said it captured the essence of what we were trying to achieve there." "That's impossible," Jessica whispered. The photographer's name wasn't on it, just the title, Future Possibilities. "I've looked at it every day, wondering about the person who saw something special in an ordinary moment." His eyes met hers. "And then I met you at the grocery store, saw your photographs on your wall, and realized I'd found her." Jessica felt dizzy with the revelation. "So this isn't, you didn't invite me because you felt sorry for me?" Jackson's laugh was genuine. "Jessica, I invited you because I've been halfway in love with your vision for years. Meeting you in person only confirmed what I already suspected, that you're extraordinary." As they stood there under the stars, the distance between them, social, financial, experiential, seemed both vast and insignificant. Jessica didn't know if she believed in fate, but standing there with Jackson, her mother's dress brushing against his tuxedo, she was beginning to believe in possibilities. What she didn't see was Amanda Whitfield watching them from inside, her expression calculating as she raised her phone to take a discreet photo of the pair. Nor did she notice the familiar face at the bar, her ex-boyfriend Daniel, now working as a waiter for the catering company, his eyes narrowing as he observed Jessica's apparent rise in social status. The night was only beginning, and the path ahead was far from certain. The days following the gala passed in a dreamlike haze for Jessica. On Monday morning, a stunning bouquet of lilies and wildflowers arrived at her desk at Meridian Publishing, accompanied by a handwritten note from Jackson thanking her for a wonderful evening. By lunchtime, everyone in the office had heard about her apparent connection to Jackson Pierce. "Is it serious?" her supervisor, Nancy Porter, asked with poorly disguised interest when she called Jessica into her office. Nancy was in her 50s, with a perpetual frown that had deepened over her 20 years at Meridian. "We're just friends," Jessica said, though the memory of Jackson's hand on the small of her back suggested otherwise. "Well, your friend called this morning," Nancy said, sliding a message slip across her desk. "He wanted to know if you'd be free for dinner tonight." Jessica felt her cheeks flush as she took the slip. "Thank you." "Jessica," Nancy's tone softened unexpectedly, "be careful. Men like Jackson Pierce live in a different world. I'd hate to see you get hurt." It was the first sign of actual concern Nancy had ever shown her, and it was unsettling. "I appreciate your concern, but I can take care of myself." That evening, Jessica met Jackson at Riverview, an exclusive restaurant overlooking the harbor. The maitre d' greeted Jackson by name and led them to a secluded table with panoramic views of the water. "I took the liberty of asking the chef to prepare something special," Jackson said after they were seated. "I hope you don't mind." "Not at all," Jessica replied, though she couldn't help wondering what special meant in terms of cost. The restaurant had no prices on its menu, never a good sign for someone on a budget. As they sipped wine that probably cost more than her weekly grocery bill, Jackson asked about her day, genuinely interested in the mundane details of her work at Meridian. In turn, she asked about Pierce Industries. "We're at an interesting juncture," he explained, his grey eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "Our new neural interface technology could revolutionize accessibility for people with physical disabilities, but we're facing some challenges." "What kind of challenges?" A shadow crossed his face. "Corporate politics. Not everyone shares my vision for how the technology should be used." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of their first course, a delicate arrangement of seafood that looked more like art than food. As they ate, Jessica became aware of curious glances from nearby tables. "People are staring," she whispered. Jackson shrugged. "They're always staring. One of the downsides of being in the public eye." "Is that why you never married?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Rather than being offended, Jackson seemed amused. "Partly. It's hard to know if someone wants you or your money. But mostly I've been busy building Pierce Industries." He took a sip of his wine. "What about you?" "No significant other." "Not currently," Jessica said, thinking briefly of Daniel, her ex-boyfriend of 2 years who had ended things 6 months ago, claiming she was too focused on responsibilities and not spontaneous enough. "Their loss," Jackson said simply. After dinner, they walked along the harbor, the city lights reflecting on the water. Jackson kept a respectful distance, though Jessica found herself wishing he would take her hand. "I have to go to Tokyo next week," he said, as they paused to watch a boat glide by. "Business meetings, but I'd like to see you when I get back." "I'd like that too," Jessica admitted. He smiled, the dimple appearing in his left cheek. "Good." Over the next few weeks, a pattern emerged. Jackson would call or text when he was in town, and they would meet for dinner, walks in the park, or private viewings at galleries. He was always attentive, interested in her thoughts and dreams, but physically respectful, a gentleman. The press began to notice, and several tabloid websites published grainy photos of them together, speculating about the mystery woman in Jackson Pierce's life. Jessica tried to ignore the media attention and the growing whispers at work. She hadn't told Jackson, but her co-workers had become increasingly distant, as if her association with him somehow changed who she was. Only Mia remained steadfastly supportive. "They're just jealous," Mia insisted during their lunch break, "and scared you'll leave for a better job, which, by the way, you totally should if Walter Bennett makes you an offer." Jessica had indeed met with the museum director, who seemed genuinely impressed with her photography portfolio and ideas for digital archiving. "It's just a consulting position," she reminded Mia. "Part-time, to start. Still better than filing Nancy's reports," Mia pointed out. "Speaking of which, have you told Jackson about Daniel?" Jessica frowned. "Why would I? That relationship ended months ago." "Because Daniel's been asking about you," Mia said carefully. "He came by the office yesterday looking for you." This was unwelcome news. Daniel had never been the type to check in on ex-girlfriends. "What did he want?" "He didn't say, but he mentioned seeing you at some fancy event." Mia raised an eyebrow. "Was he at the gala?" Jessica suddenly remembered seeing Daniel in a waiter's uniform at the bar. "He was working it. I didn't speak to him." "Well, he definitely noticed you, and he seemed interested." Jessica dismissed the concern. Daniel had made his choice when he walked away 6 months ago, claiming she was too boring and responsible. His sudden reappearance now that she was connected to someone wealthy and influential seemed suspiciously convenient. That evening, Jessica received a text from Jackson. "Back from Tokyo. Dinner tomorrow. I have something important to discuss." The message sent a flutter of anticipation through her. They had been seeing each other for nearly 2 months now, and while their relationship remained largely platonic, a few brief kisses, good night, nothing more, Jessica found herself increasingly drawn to him. Not to his wealth or status, but to the man himself, thoughtful, passionate about his work and quietly generous. The next day at work, Jessica was finishing a report when Nancy called her into her office again. This time, her supervisor wasn't alone. A stern-looking woman in an expensive suit sat across from Nancy, a folder open on her lap. "Jessica, this is Vanessa Mitchell from Pierce Industries," Nancy said, her expression unreadable. Jessica's heart skipped a beat. Why would someone from Jackson's company be here? "Nice to meet you," she managed. "Ms. Walsh," Vanessa began, her tone cool and professional. "I understand you've been seeing Jackson Pierce socially." Yes," Jessica confirmed, confused by the formal approach. "Then you should be aware of certain facts." Vanessa slid a document across the desk. "Pierce Industries is in the process of acquiring Meridian Publishing. The deal has been in negotiation for several months." Jessica stared at the document, the words blurring before her eyes. "I don't understand. What does this have to do with me?" "Given your relationship with Mr. Pierce, there's concern about potential conflicts of interest, specifically whether you might have access to confidential information about the acquisition." The implication was clear, and it felt like a slap. "You think I'm dating Jackson to—" "What? Spy on Meridian?" "We're not making accusations," Vanessa said smoothly, "but appearances matter. Mr. Pierce's board is concerned that his judgment may be compromised." "Does Jackson know you're here?" Jessica demanded, anger rising through her shock. "Mr. Pierce is not involved in this inquiry," Vanessa replied. "As head of corporate security, it's my responsibility to investigate potential vulnerabilities." Jessica stood abruptly. "I have nothing more to say without legal representation." It was a phrase she'd heard in movies, but it seemed appropriate for this absurd situation. "That's your right," Vanessa agreed, gathering her papers. "But I should warn you, the board is pressuring Mr. Pierce to end this relationship. For the good of the company, After Vanessa left, Nancy sighed heavily. "I told you to be careful, Jessica." Jessica didn't respond. Her mind was reeling. Was this why Jackson wanted to see her tonight? To end things? And why hadn't he mentioned the Meridian acquisition? Unable to focus, she took the rest of the day off, claiming illness. As she walked home in a daze, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk about Jackson. It's important. Meet me at Carter's Cafe at 4, Daniel." Jessica's first instinct was to ignore it, but curiosity got the better of her. Daniel had been acting strangely since the gala, and now this cryptic message, it couldn't be a coincidence. Carter's Cafe was a small establishment near her apartment, far from the upscale venues she'd been frequenting with Jackson. Daniel was already there when she arrived, nursing a coffee and looking surprisingly well-dressed compared to his usual casual style. "Thanks for coming," he said as she slid into the booth across from him. "What's this about, Daniel?" Jessica asked, skipping pleasantries. "Why the sudden interest in my life?" He had the grace to look uncomfortable. "I saw you at the gala with Pierce. You looked happy. It got me thinking about us, what went wrong." "You broke up with me," Jessica reminded him. "Said I was too focused on responsibilities, not fun enough, remember?" "I was an idiot," Daniel admitted. "But I'm worried about you, Jess. Pierce isn't what he seems." Jessica's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" Daniel leaned forward. "I overheard things at the gala. Pierce is involved in something shady. That neural interface technology he's developing? They're planning to sell it to military contractors, use it for enhanced interrogation." "That's ridiculous," Jessica scoffed. "Jackson is dedicated to using that technology to help people with disabilities." "That's what he tells you," Daniel countered. "But I heard him talking with Amanda Whitfield and some government types. The military applications are where the real money is." Jessica stood up, her chair scraping loudly. "I don't believe you." "Why would I lie?" Daniel asked, his expression earnest. "I don't know," Jessica replied. "Maybe because you suddenly showed interest in me again, only after seeing me with a billionaire." As she turned to leave, Daniel grabbed her wrist. "Be careful, Jess. There's a reason Pierce has never had a serious relationship. People who get too close to him tend to disappear from his life. Ask about Allison Harris." The name meant nothing to Jessica, but something in Daniel's tone made her pause. "Who is Allison Harris?" "His last girlfriend. She was a researcher at Pierce Industries, working on the neural interface. When she objected to the military applications, she was fired. Signed an NDA with a massive settlement, but I have a friend who knows her. She's scared, Jess, really scared." Jessica pulled her arm free. "I have to go." Outside, her phone buzzed with another text, this one from Jackson. "Car will pick you up at 7. Wear something nice, Jay." Jessica spent the hours before dinner in turmoil, torn between her growing feelings for Jackson and the disturbing accusations from Daniel and Vanessa Mitchell. Part of her wanted to cancel, to run from the complications that came with Jackson's world, but a stronger part needed to hear his side of the story. At precisely 7 p.m., the now familiar black town car arrived. This time, it took her to Jackson's penthouse apartment, a stunning space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Jackson greeted her with a kiss on the cheek, looking handsome but tired in a casual button-down and slacks. "You look beautiful," he said, leading her to a private dining area where an intimate table for two had been set up. "I hope you don't mind dining in tonight. I wanted privacy for our conversation." "Actually, I have some questions," Jessica began, deciding directness was best. "So do I," Jackson replied with a smile. "But first, champagne." He popped open a bottle and filled 2 flutes. "Jackson, is Pierce Industries acquiring Meridian Publishing?" His hand froze mid-air. "How did you hear about that?" "Vanessa Mitchell came to see me today," Jessica said, watching his expression carefully. "She suggested our relationship might be a conflict of interest." Jackson's face darkened with anger. "Vanessa had no right to approach you. That was completely unauthorized." "So it's true?" Jessica pressed. "You're buying Meridian?" "The acquisition has been in the works for months, long before I met you," Jackson explained. "It's part of a larger digital media strategy." "But it's not public knowledge yet. Why didn't you tell me?" "Legally, I couldn't," he said, "and I didn't want you to think that's why I was interested in you." Jessica took a deep breath. "What about the neural interface technology? Is it being developed for military use?" Now Jackson looked genuinely confused. "Where is this coming from, Jessica? Just answer the question." He set down his glass. "The neural interface has countless applications. Yes, defense contractors have expressed interest, as have medical device companies and disability rights organizations. My vision has always been to focus on the humanitarian applications first, but I'm in a battle with my board over the direction." "And Alison Harris?" Jessica asked quietly. "What happened to her?" The color drained from Jackson's face. "Who told you about Alison?" The flash of pain in his eyes was unmistakable, and Jessica immediately regretted the accusatory tone. "Does it matter?" "Yes," Jackson said firmly, "because someone is feeding you misinformation, and I need to know who and why." Before Jessica could respond, Jackson's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. "I need to take this. It's my security team. Excuse me for a moment." As he stepped away to take the call, Jessica noticed a folder on his desk labeled Project Ascension Neural Interface Applications. Her journalistic instincts taking over, she quickly flipped it open. Inside were documents detailing military applications for the neural interface, enhanced interrogation, remote soldier control, even a proposal for what was euphemistically called cognitive compliance technology. This was exactly what Daniel had warned her about. When Jackson returned, his expression was grave. "We have a security breach. Someone's been accessing confidential files about the neural interface project." Jessica closed the folder guiltily. "Jackson, I need to know the truth. What is Project Ascension really about?" Their eyes met, and in that moment everything changed. The trust that had been building between them wavered, hanging by a thread that could either strengthen or snap completely. "Jessica," Jackson said quietly, "it's complicated." In the tense silence that followed, Jessica realized the fairy tale she'd been living had just collided with reality, and nothing would ever be the same again. The silence stretched between them, charged with unspoken questions and the weight of revelations not yet fully understood. "Complicated," Jessica repeated, her voice surprisingly steady despite her racing heart. "That's not an answer, Jackson." He sighed heavily, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair, suddenly looking less like a polished CEO and more like a man carrying an enormous burden. "You're right. You deserve the truth." He gestured to the folder she'd been examining. "May I?" Jessica nodded, and Jackson spread the documents across the table, pushing aside their untouched dinner. "Project Ascension began as my personal mission," he explained. "After my mother suffered a stroke that left her partially paralyzed, I became obsessed with creating technology that could bridge the gap between neural intention and physical action. The initial research was promising. We developed interfaces that could translate brain signals into digital commands." He pointed to a diagram showing a sleek headset. "This prototype allowed my mother to control her environment, communicate, even paint again, all through thought alone. It changed her life." "That's incredible," Jessica admitted, momentarily forgetting her suspicions. "Why would you keep something so beneficial secret?" Jackson's expression darkened. "Because others saw different applications. Military contracts worth billions. Surveillance capabilities beyond anything currently possible. And yes, interrogation techniques that could extract information directly from the brain." "So Daniel was right," Jessica whispered. "Daniel?" Jackson frowned. "Your ex-boyfriend? How is he involved?" Jessica explained her meeting with Daniel earlier that day, his warnings about military applications and Alison Harris. With each detail she shared, Jackson's expression grew more troubled. "Daniel has been feeding you carefully selected half-truths," he said finally. "Yes, there are proposed military applications. Those documents are real, but they're proposals I've been fighting against for months." "And Alison Harris?" Jessica pressed. Jackson's eyes clouded with pain. "Alison was important to me. She was brilliant, passionate about the technology's potential to help people. We were together for nearly a year." "What happened to her?" "She discovered that board members were secretly negotiating with military contractors behind my back. When she brought the evidence to me, we confronted the board together." He paused, the memory clearly painful. "They threatened to oust me as CEO if I didn't cooperate. Alison became a target. They accused her of industrial espionage, threatened legal action." "So you fired her and paid her off?" Jessica asked, unable to keep the disappointment from her voice. "No," Jackson said firmly. "I helped her disappear. The settlement was a cover story. She's currently working at our research facility in Switzerland under an assumed name, continuing the work we believe in. Only 3 people know her location. Myself, my head of security, and now you." Jessica felt dizzy with the implications. If that's true, Why would Daniel tell me she was scared? Because someone wants you to doubt me, Jackson said grimly. The question is why. As if on cue, Jackson's phone buzzed with a message. His face hardened as he read it. My security team found something. Amanda Whitfield has been accessing files about you and about Meridian Publishing, and she's been in contact with Daniel Harris multiple times over the past month. Daniel Harris? Jessica repeated, confused. My ex's last name is Johnson. Not according to his employment records from the catering company, Jackson replied, showing her the message. He used a fake name with you. His real name is Daniel Harris. Harris, Jessica echoed, the pieces suddenly falling into place. As in related to Allison Harris. Her brother, Jackson confirmed, who apparently blames me for his sister's disappearance. Jessica's mind was reeling. So Daniel was using me to get information about you, from the beginning. I don't think so, Jackson said thoughtfully. According to these dates, he only made contact with Amanda after the gala, when he saw us together. My guess is that Amanda approached him, leveraging his resentment against me to create this plan. But why? Jessica asked. What does Amanda gain from turning me against you? Control, Jackson said simply. Amanda represents a faction on my board that wants to pursue the military contracts. They know I'm close to having enough votes to shut down those proposals permanently. If they can distract me, or better yet, discredit me. By making it seem like you're dating an industrial spy, Jessica finished, remembering Vanessa Mitchell's accusations. Exactly, and it nearly worked. Jackson reached across the table to take her hand. Jessica, I've been fighting this battle alone for so long. When I met you, it was like finding a moment of peace in the middle of a war. I never meant to drag you into this. Jessica thought of the photograph that had drawn Jackson to her, future possibilities, and the strange twist of fate that had brought them together at the grocery store. I'm already involved, she said quietly. The question is, what do we do now? Jackson's eyes lit with determination. We fight back. But first, I need to know if you trust me. It was the crucial question. Despite the whirlwind of revelations, Jessica found that her instincts about Jackson remained unchanged. The man who had helped her with groceries, who valued her photography, who spoke of his mother with such tenderness, that man was real. I trust you, she said. Relief flooded his features. Then let's end this tonight. Jackson's plan was both simple and audacious. He called an emergency board meeting at Pierce Industries headquarters, ostensibly to discuss the security breach. All board members were required to attend, including Amanda Whitfield. Are you sure about this? Jessica asked as they rode the elevator to the top floor of the gleaming Pierce Tower. Once we do this, there's no going back. Jackson squeezed her hand. I've been playing defense too long. It's time to take control of my company back. The boardroom fell silent as Jackson entered with Jessica by his side. 12 people sat around a massive table, their expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. Amanda Whitfield occupied a seat near the head, her perfectly composed face betraying only the slightest surprise at Jessica's presence. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, Jackson began, his voice commanding the room. As you know, we've had a security breach regarding Project Ascension. Is it wise to discuss this with an outsider present? Amanda asked smoothly, gesturing toward Jessica. Ms. Walsh is here at my invitation, Jackson replied. In fact, she's central to the matter at hand. With methodical precision, Jackson laid out the evidence. Amanda's unauthorized access to files about Jessica and Meridian, her contact with Daniel Harris, and her clandestine meetings with military contractors, all documented by his security team. This isn't just corporate espionage, Jackson concluded. This is a coordinated attempt to undermine my leadership and push through military contracts that violate our company's founding principles. Amanda's composure finally cracked. You have no proof. Actually, we do, came a new voice from the doorway. Jessica turned to see a tall, elegant woman with striking gray eyes, the same unusual shade as Jackson's. Despite never having seen her before, Jessica instantly knew who she was. Margaret Pierce, Jackson's mother, and the company's largest individual shareholder. Mother, Jackson said with evident surprise. I didn't know you were in town. Some situations require a personal touch, Margaret replied, moving into the room with the help of a sleek carbon fiber cane. She fixed Amanda with a steely gaze. I've been watching this situation develop from a distance. Tonight, I received some interesting information from our facility in Switzerland. At the mention of Switzerland, Amanda paled visibly. Margaret continued, It seems someone has been attempting to access our secure servers there. The digital trail leads directly to your private terminal, Amanda. You were trying to find Allison, Jackson realized aloud. That's why you needed leverage against me. You thought I'd reveal her location if you threatened my relationship with Jessica. The boardroom erupted into confused questions, but Margaret silenced them with a raised hand. There will be a full investigation. Until then, Ms. Whitfield is suspended from this board, effective immediately. Amanda stood abruptly, her carefully cultivated poise shattering. You can't do this. I have allies here who are suddenly reconsidering their positions, Margaret interrupted, glancing meaningfully around the table. Several board members avoided Amanda's desperate gaze. Security will escort you from the building. As Amanda was led away, Margaret turned to her son. You should have come to me sooner, Jackson. I may be partially paralyzed, but my mind and my influence are fully intact. I wanted to protect you, Jackson admitted. And I you, his mother replied with a fond smile. Now aren't you going to introduce me to this remarkable young woman who's helped expose this conspiracy? Later that evening, after the board meeting concluded with a unanimous vote to reject military applications for the neural interface, Jackson and Jessica stood on the rooftop garden of Pierce Tower, the city lights spreading before them like a carpet of stars. I still can't believe your mother just appeared like that, Jessica said, shaking her head in amazement. Talk about perfect timing, Jackson laughed, the sound lighter than she'd ever heard from him. Mother always did have a flair for the dramatic. She likes you, by the way. The feeling is mutual, Jessica replied. Margaret Pierce had been formidable but surprisingly warm, insisting Jessica call her Maggie and extracting a promise to visit for Sunday dinner. What happens now? Jessica asked, leaning against the rooftop railing. With Project Ascension, I mean. We go public, Jackson said. Complete transparency about the humanitarian applications, patents open for medical use, restrictive licenses for other applications. No more secrets. And Allison, will she come home? Jackson nodded. Once the internal investigation is complete and we're sure it's safe. She's done amazing work in Switzerland. A comfortable silence fell between them, filled with unspoken possibilities. And what about us? Jessica finally asked, voicing the question that had been hovering between them since the chaos began. Jackson turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. These past weeks have been extraordinary, Jessica. Meeting you first through your photograph and then in person changed something fundamental in me. You reminded me why I started Pierce Industries in the first place, to make a positive difference. You saved me from embarrassment at a grocery store, Jessica pointed out with a smile. Let's not get too philosophical. I'm serious, Jackson insisted. You see the world through a lens of compassion and possibility. Your photography captures moments of human connection that most people miss. That's rare, and it's exactly what the world needs more of. Jessica felt a blush rising to her cheeks. Are you offering me a job, Jackson Pierce? I'm offering you whatever you want, he replied, his grey eyes intense in the moonlight. A consulting position at the museum, a photography studio, a partnership in developing the user experience for the neural interface, or simply the chance to explore what's happening between us without corporate espionage and family vendettas getting in the way. Jessica laughed, the sound carrying across the rooftop garden. When you put it that way, how can I refuse? Is that a yes? Jackson asked, his dimple appearing as he smiled. To which part? All of it, he said, drawing her closer, starting with this. As his lips met hers in a kiss that held promises of futures yet to be explored, Jessica thought of the photograph that had connected them, future possibilities, and marveled at how accurately it had named their shared destiny. 6 months later, the headline in the business section would read, Pierce Industries launches revolutionary neural interface for disability access, led by new Chief Experience Officer Jessica Walsh-Pierce. The accompanying photograph would show Jessica and Jackson cutting a ribbon at a rehabilitation center, Margaret Pierce beaming proudly beside them, with Allison Harris, safely returned from Switzerland, demonstrating the technology to eager patients. But that evening on the rooftop, none of that future was certain yet. All that existed was the present moment, a moment of connection between two people who had found each other against impossible odds, brought together by a declined credit card and the simple act of human kindness. And that, Jessica decided as she pulled away from the kiss to see Jackson's joyful expression, was more than enough to begin with.